From the Sweet 16 to the Elite Eight, UCLA takes down Ole Miss as expected, and the all-important rematch a year later against LSU, this time in the Elite Eight.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. It's your team every day. All right, where we get started, let's start and get down to business on the Sweet 16, right? Lauren Betts was dominant. 31 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 blocks. She did have a couple of fouls. First time all season, she might have gotten in foul trouble. Did have 4 turnovers to lead the Bruins in that category. You take the negatives aside, UCLA was unstoppable with on their floor. There was a point when UCLA was plus 20 and they were minus 6. Plus 20 with Betts on the floor, minus 6 when she wasn't. I don't know what the end plus minus totals ended up being, but clearly going one-on-one with Betts in the post when the Bruins, generally turning it over 5 times en route to getting her the basketball, give her the ball with space, with time, in the area she wants. She can turn, pivot, and score at will. 15 points, 15 shots made on 16 field goal attempts. Utter domination for one of the best players in the country. All right, one of the best players and definitely the most dominant post player UCLA's had ever in the women's basketball in the NCAA era, right? As dominant as it gets. The rest of the players were a little sluggish, not the best of nights from UCLA. Maybe as expected in their 76-62 win, Ole Miss was very scrappy defensively. My thoughts were, can UCLA get to 75? Can they turn it over less than 15 times per game? And that would lead to victory. Well, when you shoot 60% from the floor, namely Lauren Betts, and then you turn it over 19 times, those numbers kind of offset. Early in the game, Ole Miss, a lot of offensive rebounds. UCLA did their best to rebound, but the Rebels stayed in this game because they had 20 offensive rebounds. 20 boards. That's not going to cut it when Christine Iwala, former Bruin, comes up there with 8 offensive rebounds and 7 steals, including a block, 2 steals. Former Bruin in the starting lineup going mano-a-mano against somebody she was probably practicing with all season long a year ago as a UCLA Bruin, now goes toe-to-toe against her in a Sweet 16. She did her best, but obviously that's not a matchup she would win every time down the floor, let alone 75% down the floor. Lauren Betts was dominant. Kiki Rice early in this game in foul trouble. You take her out. I wondered who would come in. Obviously, that would be Elena Arnesalo. How would she play? In 19 minutes of action, limited turnovers, 4 points, 1 turnover, and assist. Maybe not the most decorated facilitator UCLA has on the team, but when she has to come in and run the offense, the Bruins did just okay, but a clear difference when Lauren Betts came off the floor, and there was the time during the broadcast where she was like, I'm tired, I'm out of breath. Clearly was working very hard, 31 minutes, and put in a lot of buckets, okay? Ole Miss, they're not a team that came in ready to shoot. They were a team that took care of the basketball, 6 assists versus UCLA's 6 turnovers to UCLA's 19 turnovers. All right. Their game is predicated from Coach Yo all the way down to the rest of her roster, where they were physical, they go after the basketball, they go after the loose balls, and force UCLA into turnovers. That's generally everybody's game plan, but clearly it worked heading into the locker room. UCLA was only up a point, and then in the blink of an eye in the beginning of the third, the Bruins came back and were ready to play. Absolutely ready to play. And for the most part, my 72-54 prediction almost held through, but then some late Ole Miss buckets, a UCLA cold stretch, the inability to stop turning it over. UCLA won this game. I expected it would be tough, but if you think about it, you look at 2 of the top 1 seeds. You had UCLA, who struggled with a decent SEC team. You had South Carolina, who was struggling very much against Maryland, and Maryland is not at their most healthy, all right? With one of their best players hurt, they were doing their best, right? One of their top two options who has been hurt for a while with a knee injury. They figured it out, had a miracle comeback victory, Maryland did, and almost took down South Carolina in the Sweet 16. So you look at two teams playing, conference, the opposite team's conference foes and struggling in the Sweet 16. It's interesting. South Carolina begging for the 1 seed could barely get past Maryland, who the Bruins dominated at Maryland, who Texas dominated at Maryland. And South Carolina is whining about a 1 seed. All right. Okay. Each game is tough, and nothing will get tougher like the mental game, like the upcoming matchup for UCLA against LSU, right? Last year, it was a battle in the Sweet 16. This year, it's an Elite Eight. And imagine if you're LSU, right? You win a title in 2023. They're the talk of the town. Then you made an enemy or two because you took down Caitlin Clark of Iowa in the championship game. And while UCLA, and I thought they were ready to go play Caitlin Clark in the Elite Eight, LSU had other plans. TV had other plans. And it was an LSU-Iowa Elite Eight. This year, a year later, UCLA, the top team in the country. Who'd they lose to last year? LSU, Kim Mulkey. You bring in Johnson. You bring in Morrow back. You bring in some of the key characters from LSU other than Angel Reese. And now the Bruins are bigger, better, and badder than they were last year. The problem is LSU, championship head coach. You've got a team that's been there before, a team that's ready and already taken down the Bruins, mostly as constructed. Now the difference is the Bruins have a Jedi Barker, a backup true freshman point guard. They don't have a Charisma Osborne who could go off, which she did not in the Sweet 16 last year, but you got backup bigs. You have an expectation that UCLA needs to get to their first Final Four in program history at the NCAA era. All right, let's go back and look at those numbers from a year ago in that heartbreaker against LSU. UCLA lost 78-69, a game where it was back and forth in the first quarter. LSU led by 7 at the beginning of the second, or heading into halftime. UCLA tied it going into the fourth, and then LSU scored 30 fourth quarter points, including pulling away late to beat the Bruins in the Sweet 16. Now here UCLA is, a year later. The difference is, think about who was getting the basketball. Lauren Betts shot it 9 times last year against Anissa Morrow, Angel Reese, and the LSU Tigers. 9 shots Lauren Betts got against the Tigers last year. Now Mulkey is going to game plan and find her way to stop UCLA from getting the ball to Lauren Betts, as many teams have done their best at doing, other than Ole Miss today, where Betts dominated. 30 points, 10 rebounds, a 30-point, 10-rebound double-double in the tournament. Lauren Betts has done that now twice in back-to-back games. What UCLA is not going to have happen this year is they're not going to have a Dugalich put up 11 shots and go 0 of 6 from 3. That's what she did last year. The difference, UCLA can give the basketball to London Jones, who can take a couple more and be more efficient, hopefully, like she was coming out of the locker room to start the third quarter against Ole Miss. Then you can go to Tamia Gardner, who could be more of an important weapon against LSU than she was against Ole Miss. Kiki Rice, Flau'jae Johnson, you can go mano-a-mano for the top 3 on each team's squad, right? You've got the post equivalent, arguably, in LSU. You've got the point guard equivalent, maybe better scoring guard in Johnson now at this stage of her career. You bring in Michaela Williams, who is one of the best scorers on LSU's team, a 3-point sniper, 39%, 64 made threes in Michaela Williams. UCLA's got that somewhat in London Jones, not at that elite level, but can shoot it pretty well. So UCLA top 3 versus LSU's top 3, they battle back and forth. It's going to come down to the depth pieces in this game, right? And whether you want to say Gabby Hawkes is more important than London Jones. If Jones shoots well, they will not lose. The Bruins will not lose. If Gabriela Hawkes comes ready to play, hits a couple of threes, a 13-8 day, 13 points, 8 rebounds, like when the Bruins played in Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament, all right, she'll dominate. She could dominate. And if UCLA is to get to a Final Four, get a little more rest, this is the toughest matchup they will face in the tournament. They went from elite offensive team in Richmond, who battled them for 20 minutes, and the Bruins pulled away. Elite defensive team in Ole Miss. Bruins battled for 20 minutes. Ole Miss battled for 20 minutes, and UCLA pulled away. Now they're going to take on their toughest test since the USC game, arguably their third best opponent they've played this year. All right. You take out South Carolina, you take out USC, LSU could be up there. All right. Last year, UCLA was stacked with tough matchups, road environments, everything on their way to the Sweet 16. This year, they know they're good, but they are the ones that are hunted. UCLA is learning to be the hunter while also being hunted. All right. Because you see South Carolina and Don Staley, they'll take the underdog mentality and be like, hey, we're the underdogs, it's a 1 seed, and we're disrespected. Hence, you see all those commercials that they're a disrespected 1 seed. Then you see LSU, who's like, okay, we'll sit here, sneak around, weave our way to a national title like they did in 2023, but they'd have to take down a top dog like UCLA. So the post will be an important piece for UCLA. Can they get the ball to Lauren Betts? And as dominant as Ole Miss was in the Sweet 16 game and getting the rebounds, Anissa Morrow is pretty much the same as Lauren Betts when it comes to grabbing boards, if not better. 18 points per game, almost 14 rebounds per game. Really good at swiping the basketball. Morrow has 88 steals in this season. 88, which is good for close to 2+ per game. So if UCLA is going to fail, or if Lauren Betts brings the basketball down in this game, she could rip it, and just that matchup alone could lead to a lot of extra LSU possessions. If UCLA loses this game, you'll most likely see a lower scoring game in the 50s, in the 60s, scratching the low 70s. If this is a higher scoring game, free-flowing, less turnovers, or if UCLA is making shots at a high percentage, then UCLA will most likely win this game in the 75, 74 type range, right? That they need to score points to win this game. Not they can't play defense, but if UCLA is scoring points, it's good. They will be fine. One key thing last year, UCLA had 19 turnovers in the Sweet 16. They had 19 turnovers in the Sweet 16 today. They cannot turn over the basketball and expect to beat the LSU Tigers, all right? They have some dynamic players. They have dynamic coaching, and they have played the likes of South Carolina, the Texases. They've played the elite defenses, the best teams at home or on the road in the SEC. They're not going to be afraid of UCLA. LSU is not going to be. This is where the psyche of the Bruins, a year later, they're expected to get to the Final Four, where they're expected to play UConn at this moment. If UConn gets through their Sweet 16, if they go on to beat whoever they play in the Elite Eight, then it would be a big battle between UCLA and UConn, potentially in the Final Four. For UCLA, though, in a primetime Sunday afternoon matchup, when all the eyes are going to be on the number one team in the country that nobody agrees on is the number one team in the country other than the people who have watched them every game, like myself, watching them, hey, look at this team. They're dominant. LSU is that team that could mess with their psyche, offensively, defensively, rebounding with the shooting to boot, arguably a better three-point shooting team than last year, right? The improvements from Johnson. You see Michaela Williams having a big role, bringing Samaya Smith. There are some key ingredients for LSU that can lead to a win against UCLA. I just think the Bruins are deeper. Unlike last year, they're not going to rely, I would think, on Dugalich taking 11 shots or 6 3-point shots where she did not make a single shot. That's where Janiah Barker comes in. That's where Gardner comes in. They weren't big pieces in this game against Ole Miss. They didn't have to be. Now, UCLA can't fall for the bait and live in jump shot territory, 3-point land, where that's not their strength if it's not the right people shooting it. Last year, they were cold, ice cold from the floor and very nervous, and it took a big run to get back in it. This year, the expectation, the determination, the preparation, can they treat LSU like they did South Carolina earlier this season? Okay? UCLA went to Albany a year ago. This year it's in Spokane. Less travel. They're already there. They just went up a coast, not a couple of time zones, not a few time zones. It's LSU, the ones that are traveling. The team that is traveling. Can the Bruins do it? Absolutely. I have them winning it all in my bracket. Bias included, everything, but I also believe UCLA is the dominant, best, most deep team in the country. If you've been listening to this podcast, I've been saying that outright. LSU, though, is that weird, extra demon you need to exercise. And then be like, hey, do we need an exorcist? Well, this is a chance for UCLA to come together and get rid of that demon from last year and go make program-defining territory. Go into new territory in the Final Four in the NCAA era women's college basketball and put themselves into a new light. And then they could be fighting themselves for an NCAA title. And we'll be talking about all that and more on Locked On UCLA throughout the week. Crazy day, absolute crazy day in UCLA hoops. The women on to the Elite Eight, and they'll get their LSU rematch. Man, has daylight savings snuck up on you again? Just like for me, I'm like, man, days are longer. It's still a little cool, but hey, the sleep schedule hasn't exactly been the same in the last couple of weeks. Well, 5-hour energy is a way to have our back, right? The extra sunshine means more time for more fun, but you need a little boost to power through that, all right? Maybe you're staying up late to watch the NCAA tournament. Women's, men's, whatever it might be, squeeze in a round of golf after work, keep up the buddies, keep up with a busy day. 5-hour energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. On-the-go convenience. Think about it. You're watching games. You're going elsewhere. Maybe you're on the go. You're like, man, I'm sleepy. It's that mid-Sunday lull, and I want to watch the UCLA women rock and roll in the Elite Eight, right, in that big tournament. Well, UCLA has to find, hey, they got to find a way to get through, and you need to find a way to get through your day to watch the Bruins. 5-hour energy is easy to grab and keeps you refreshed. Go to 5hourenergy.com. Find over 15 flavors, including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango, and build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Grab a 5-hour energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They're everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. That's going to do it for us here on Locked On UCLA. The Bruins are taking on the LSU Tigers in the Elite Eight. That's something we all wanted to see. NC State was really good. I thought they might beat LSU. I thought the Tigers would be a little bit too banged up, too injured after how they finished the SEC tournament. They have proved me wrong, and they are preparing to take on the UCLA Bruins. I do think that UCLA will win this game, but only time will tell, and we will react to that after the game on Sunday afternoon. Until then, 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, UCLA. UCLA, fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach signing off. Go Bruins.